Hey everybody, Chalkboard History
Part 2.
Volume 2, Part 2. It is July 30th. Do you know what was happening right now in 1864?
We're going to go to Atlanta. Is that where we are?
It's hot. It's hot outside of Atlanta.
Ladies.
John Bell Hood has been in command of the Confederate Army for a week and a half. And they have gotten smoked at Peachtree Creek, the Battle of Atlanta, and then Ezra Church. And I know all of the Hood bashers out there have spent years and years beating up his ghost, but I don't know what John Bell Hood was supposed to do other than try and lunge out and smack Sherman in the face and try and knock him back from the outskirts of Atlanta. Obviously, he failed, and then Margaret Mitchell threw Gone with the Wind in our face, and we've been living in the shadow of that ever since. But that's a lead into battlefield reclamation because, let me tell you, if you go to Atlanta, other than it's big and the traffic sucks, if you think Nashville's bad, go to Atlanta. You would hardly know the John Bell Hood or W.T. Sherman were ever there. I tracked those battlefields. Peachtree Creek is basically what's left of it is the creek and a golf course.
Oh, gosh.
The Battle of Atlanta, like where James McPherson was killed, is just kind of a cross between a nice kind of suburbia area, old-timey, and then a not really nice part of town.
Any signage even? I mean,
there's really actually some great signs from the 1950s that a guy named Wilbur Kurtz helped put up. And then Ezra Church, gone. I mean, that's on the west side, gone. There's just nothing left. And then that brings us to good old Spring Hill in Franklin, Tennessee, where until the year 2000, 135 years after the Civil War ended, there was nothing preserved in Franklin or Spring Hill. Except for Carter House, Carnton, and Rippavilla. And Rippavilla had just opened. Other than that, nothing.
There was an effort early on in Franklin to potentially locate a national park there, right? And it
failed.
And then people just moved on, and
that's right.
Built houses and
I'm not sure I'm supposed to ring the bell for a failure. We lost the battlefield. So, yes, it was lost. And, it got so lost it just turned into silly stories about John Bell Hood, Nathan Bedford Forrest, and the Yankees and all that sort of stuff. Since we talked about Hicks before, Hicks used to say Franklin remembered its battlefield by naming 6 streets after 6 dead generals.
There we go.
And that's true.
That is true. I live on one of those. I live on Mr. General Adams Street.
Adams Street and Claiborne Street was being advertised in the 1920s as the latest subdivision in Franklin. Come live on the battlefield, the newspaper said.
Good Lord.
Yes, buy yourself a little cottage, right, where, blood was soaked into the ground. It was so...
icky.
Yeah, I was going to say almost villainous, but hey, it was the 20s, man.
Yeah.
People, if you were born in 1890, what did you care about this little Battle of Franklin? You could buy a nice, house on a nice piece of ground, and it seemed like a good idea. Yeah. Battleground Academy was
right there. Send your kids.
Well, by then it was
school.
On the west side, but it used to be just to the north. It's kind of crazy how it all went down, but that was happening in Atlanta. That battlefield was being built over Nashville. Yeah, ran Interstate 65 and 40, and then we blew 840 through it later on. So. Talk about erasing history, folks. If we want to really be honest, it isn't about a bunch of, protesters who hate America.
Statues.
There's been all sorts of just general progress and money-making opportunities to blast and level hills and rip down buildings and just cover up a battlefield. So what happened?
Dominoes in Franklin.
There was a little group of people. When I say little, Mary Pierce would tell you back in the 90s it was really... small. Save the Franklin Battlefield was one of the early groups that helped save some ground. Sam Huffman, Sam Gant got together, bought a little tract of land along Lewisburg Pike. And down here in Spring Hill, Jack Weaver, who lives, let's see, let me orient myself. He's over there.
Okay, yeah.
So Jack Weaver sold like 100, or so acres to the Association for the Preservation of Civil War Sites, which later became the Civil War Trust, which is now the American Battlefield Trust. And that's the Battlefield Park off of Kedron Road. So if it hadn't been for Jack Weaver and those early folks, that was 1996. That would have been gone. So there were those early victories. But it was really Franklin's charge in Franklin.
Yeah.
And a whole group of people, community activists, Julian Bibb, Robert Hicks, Ernie Bacon, Pam Lewis, the list goes on. And then they got the city to believe in it. And to believe in it was to believe in the history, but believe that tourism was good for the community because it provided two things: open space, a chance to reflect on our past so we could understand our present, and money. Money, baby. It's always about money. And tourism are dollars, because you know what you don't have to do for tourists? You don't have to build schools for them. You don't have to build houses for them.
But they will spend money, that will be tax revenue, and they're going to buy some food, and they're going to stay in somebody's hotel. And
yeah, that's right. People have been, whether it was putting a house on the beach, Walt Disney, whatever it was, money is still the driver too of how you buy land.
Yeah.
And
boy, has it been costly.
Oh my goodness! I was just going to say that for the purposes of this, we're not going to recount. It's kind of fun to recount the beginning. Then there's the nuts and bolts of all the stuff that went on in between. But we have probably, between Spring Hill and Franklin, spent north of $30 million to save. In Spring Hill, it's about 200 acres, plus now the 100 at Rippavilla, which the city got for free because it was donated. So about, when you add it all up,
it's close to
300.
Yeah.
And in Franklin, the big victory was the Golf Course and Country Club, which was 110 acres. And then we bought all these little commercial lots close to Carter House, which have been, $800,000, $1 million, $2.5 million, $5 million, $8 billion. It just seems like it's the price, and the price does
just keeps going up.
Right, because we're dumb enough to keep buying it. So but the economy's also driven the prices up.
Land values.
But I think overall it's about 175 acres in Franklin, and that now includes land that's really off the primary battlefield, like the ground that's up by Roper's Knob and Creekside, which is a historic home on the north side of Franklin. It's been astounding.
Yeah.
It really has been astounding. So the latest acquisitions, there was a $4 million acquisition of a house and an office building behind it. But what about that big, ugly cinder block thing that you've looked at Carter House for years?
The first time I gave a tour at Carter House, I helped my guests on the porch see where the federal line is by saying it's right along the edge of the grass, just this side of that ugly gray building. And that's how I've said it the whole time I've given tours there. And then it became the ugly gray building that we're trying to buy. And then it was the ugly gray building that we are buying. Do you want to help? Because we need to get rid of that. And now it's the ugly gray building that we're getting ready to take down.
So you gave your first tour when?
2019, probably.
Okay, this is how ridiculous I am. I used to stand on the porch of Carter House and had to look at the flower shop.
Yeah.
And then we tore that down, so now you can really see that building. And like the flower shop was like right here. Okay, it was right up on the Carter House.
Yeah. So now the obstruction's further out, but
and then that became really an eyesore. So the backstory on that building. We had negotiated or talked to the owner of that property
forever,
many times.
Yeah.
And it sort of went like this. I'm not going to say names, but it sort of went like this. I really love history. I just love it.
He would say that?
Oh, yeah.
Stop.
Which I think it was true, but he wouldn't sell. Then he died. Then it ended up in the hands of I think essentially like a trustees group. And their intent was to make money for heirs, right? And you could make money by renting it. And in that building had been a lot of things through the years. And that's sometimes how these things work, is people have to die.
Yeah.
And then you have to figure out if you got one last chance with the successor. And we didn't. They rebuffed us. It was like we were trying to get somebody, please go on a date with me. Please go on a date with me. And they're like, no,
it's still no.
Yeah, you're not good enough.
Hard to get.
Well, finally, what happened was we bought the property on the other side of it, and we got the two little old ladies to sell us that lot
Ceramic
for
shop.
$1.2 million,
Yeah.
which was a steal.
Yeah.
Tore that baby down like in the middle of COVID, actually. That came down in like January 2021. Well, that put pressure on the people who controlled that cinder block building.
Right.
Because they knew now they're really
They're an
boxed in.
island
And
in the
and
middle.
even if you could tear it down, what could you really build there?
Yeah.
Finally started to have a conversation. That went about that far. Aunt died.
Oh, gosh.
Another aunt died. Finally it happened. And it was $5 million.
For 7/10 of an acre and that gosh awful building.
Yeah, 7/10, and it's not the building.
Yeah. No, we just want the land.
So this is why battlefield reclamation is important, because there are people across the country who are having to go through this process. Like, imagine buying a piece of property like when the American Battlefield Trust bought Lee's headquarters, which was next to like a hotel on the outskirts on the edge of the Gettysburg battlefield. It was like millions of dollars,
Yeah.
right? And then you have to tear down the building, and then you got to rip up the parking lot. So we've been doing all this. Now we finally got these guys, these people, to agree to sell us this for $5 million. And we're just like, oh my God, is it worth it? And it was like, yeah, if we want it, I guess that's what we have to pay. But we have to get an appraisal, because we need to know what the value of it, because if we're going to apply for any grant money, because there's state and federal grant money,
Right.
you know what the appraisal was? It was like $2 million. And that's a serious moment, because then you have a meeting and say, okay, what the heck are we going to do? Because we can get $2 million, we can raise some money, but $3 million is one heck of a gap.
Yeah.
Enter the city of Franklin. So what we did with the city, like we did on some of the parcels that we purchased years earlier, and this was such a change with the city, going back to when the battlefield around or north of Carnton was saved, the old golf course. The city had helped us close the deal on the flower shop, which was the tracks right up next to Carter House. So they helped close the gap on that, and then we, meaning Franklin's Charge, Battle of Franklin Trust, American Battlefield Trust, took all of those, and mostly land on the east side of the pike, close to the Carter Cotton Gin, where Pat Claiborne had fallen, where so much heavy fighting had occurred. We bundled all that and gave it to the city in exchange for them closing the gap on that deal. Well, then we had to go back and do the same thing, which involved also the Creekside Roper's Knob property acquisition. So we were doing 2 acquisitions, 2 deals with the city. They closed the gap, and then we eventually give those properties to the city. But here's where we, meaning Battle of Franklin Trust, comes in. We will maintain it. So that's our arrangement. That's our payback, if you will, or pay forward, right? It's not
Pay forward.
Pay forward is to put up interpretive markers and then we maintain it. Because, you got to mow the grass. You can't let it turn into a jungle. On September 25th, so by the time you're seeing this, it's probably going to be mid-August.
Yeah. September
September 25th is going to be quite a day. And it's going to be quite a day for this reason. Representatives from the American Battlefield Trust will be in town, and a bunch of us who've worked on this. And we're going to have a ceremony, and there'll be, one of those ceremonial, somebody will swing a sledgehammer, or we'll try and knock a backhoe, into the wall.
I
Maybe
still think we should let Bobby fire the cannon, but it's
knock
fine.
some cinder
Whatever.
block loose.
Yeah.
But it will be a ceremonial moment, and over the course of the next few days, that building will be torn down. And that building, at least the front part of it, has been there since right after World War II. And there was stuff there before that, because the ceramic shop just south of it, that house had been there since at least 1900, and the other one, which we're now tearing down, the interior was all gutted, so it's not even National Register eligible. That one dated to like 1898. That whole area has been compromised for 125 years. The battlefield was covered up, just bastardized, forgotten, but streets named after Confederate generals. That was important. And that one might be September 25th. I don't know that it's going to be emotional, but September 25th will be interesting because it'll be almost exactly 20 years since the golf course closed. And about 25 years since the Reclamation movement started. And that's a quarter of a century. You know, $30 million over the quarter of a century in 2 towns, in 2 counties, through multiple leadership situations, through probably 20 different real estate transactions, to save it so that you can come and see it and never know how terrible it looked, or that someone who will be born 5 years from now can come see it on the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Franklin, will be wild.
And that geography matters. I remember going on you did a crack of dawn battlefield tour several years ago on the anniversary, and I remember standing in that place where we had the marker for Pat Claiborne, and it's down in a little decline, and you look up at those cannon that sit up there above you, and imagining what it was like to march up that hill, charge up in the face with those cannon in your face. I mean, the power of being on the field in the geography that they had to navigate makes the story so vibrant. And now the idea that you'll be able to stand on that porch at Carter House and see for almost a half a mile that view shed that nobody's seen for well over 100 years.
Yeah, we're not just reclaiming a battlefield, we're actually restoring a landscape that the Carters and that people in the area would have recognized. In the wintertime when the leaves are off the trees, if you're familiar with how Franklin is laid out, you'll be able to stand at the corner of Battle Avenue and Columbia Pike and look north and see the Carter House. I mean, you'll be able to see up that long slope, and it's just going to be incredible. And it also,
it's like that elusive final piece that
it is. It's a good bit of fun. It really is. Just the other day, we placed the 4th cannon with the 1st Kentucky battery. Battle of Franklin Trust funded that, $12,500. That includes the other 3 cannon that we helped sponsor, the caisson, the limber, all this battlefield property, the interpretive markers. And these are the moments when I just can't help myself. All the naysayers out there, like, why do they have to do what they do? And, they're woke or whatever, rubbish is thrown our way. It's like, you missed it.
Yeah.
You missed the whole point. You missed the fun of it. You missed the pride in it. You just missed it. But, I think you were missing it before we ever came around, because a lot of people just stood around and, they would talk about it, but they weren't doing anything. That's what was so great to get involved with long before I ever got here, is the doers, is the people like Robert, Mary Pierce, and Julian. Those are the 3, and Sam Huffman and Sam Gemp. Those 5 people. You want to talk about people who probably should have streets named after them.
Yeah.
How about we'll keep Claiborne Street, we'll get rid of the other 5, and we'll name those 5 after those 5 people. So your street name has to change. Yours can become Robert Hicks Avenue or something like that.
Wow, okay, thanks. Thanks for
but
that.
Those people were doing it.
And it was hard when nobody's patting them on the back.
And 3 of them are still doing it.
Yeah.
One of the Sams and Robert are now gone, but the 3 of them are still out there, poking at the edges. And I'm sure they'll be there on September 25th. So I've never lived in Franklin. So what does it mean to you, someone who lives in Franklin? What does all of this mean to you as a resident?
I love knowing the story of what happened there, and I feel a part of it at this point. I feel buried in it, and I love getting to share that with the people I know and that I love. I had a text this morning from a friend who says, "Hey, I've got pals in town, and I'm sending them to Carter House so you can tell them a story." I think as I share my passion for it with the people around me, it replicates and it grows. And so I love being able to show people my hometown, tell them the story of what happened here, why it mattered then and why it still matters today, why it's impacting us as Americans.
And I think as a closing point, we should not forget the reclamation that has unfolded in Spring Hill. And now that we are managing Ripavilla, we're trying to bridge that gap. And I encourage everyone who's in Franklin and seems to never go south, but is interested in history, come see it. And vice versa. If I think some people who live in Spring Hill, they're like, oh, Franklin, it's just Franklin.
Hoity-toity.
Just go see it. Drop the boundaries and the barriers and take it all in, because these 2 days, November 29th and November 30th, and these 3 sites, and thus those 2 battlefields, is really all part of this running 36-hour insanity that culminates in this just god-awful bloodshed in Franklin and leads to the Confederate Cemetery at Carnton. The federal dead are moved to the National Cemetery in Murfreesboro, and then the war ends in the spring. But to understand how the war ends, I do believe you have to go to both places. Yeah. You can't just go to Franklin. You can't stand on Winstead Hill and think about and understand what John Bell Hood was doing unless you come to Spring Hill. And if you're in Spring Hill, you have to go to Franklin, because that is the end of that story. But this is the beginning of that story. And ultimately both are the end of the war story, which itself is the beginning of a country that's redefined, of a country redefined, which goes back to the early days when we promised city leaders that we would tell as much of a full story as we could, and that a Civil War battlefield was something before it was a battlefield, and it was something after. And it is a great place to learn about who we were and who we are. So, come see it, get involved. There will be other battlefield acquisition projects.
And you can be a part of that by contributing.
That's right. And there will be something in the future. Every time we say this is it, this one's a big piece. It's a big final piece of this puzzle. But there will be other things. And we do not intend to stop until either it's done or we're done. One of the two.
Yeah, and then somebody will take up the mantle from there, and they'll keep going.
And somebody has to. All right, thanks, everybody. All righty, I got to run.